Good morning, children. This is DJ Pomfrey, your only voice of truth in the cold bleakness of the equestrian wasteland, with today's bulletin. If you happen to travel between the town of New Appaloosa and Ponyville, you might want to steer out of riders and slavers' caravans. Best case scenario, you will die fast. Pray that that's the case. Ponies are still shaken about the recent activities of the Steel Rangers and their relentless genocide of various stables' populations. Their Spock pony had this to say, and I quote, "All their technology are belong to us, the future of Equestria. We are the good guys." Really? In other news, a pack of bloodthirsty hellhounds, which you may be able to distinguish from regular hounds by their sharp teeth and claws, towering heights, and a general dislike of ponies, have been engaged in an ongoing battle against the goddesses alicorns for the control of Splendid Valley. If you value your life, you might not want to go there on vacation. The forces of Red Eye have begun moving again. I'm not certain what Red Eye's purpose is, but I doubt it can be good for any of us, even if he had noble intentions. After all, as we all learn in the hardest way possible, the gates of hell are opened by the incantation of good intentions. And finally, I bring you a message from the stable dweller herself, that heroic little mare that brought a light of hope to our desecrated lands. She says, and I quote, "We must do better." She also adds, "Celestia's horn raped me in the eye socket." Well, what a colorful expression. We all wish you luck, stable dweller. May your quest born fruit. May your path stay straight. And may your mind and virtue survive the horrors of the wasteland. This has been your faithful DJ Pomfrey. I'll Wow! Just wow! Fallout Equestria is the single greatest piece of literature I've ever read. It's an enlightening, emotionally grasping, boldly yet carefully crafted masterpiece. At times potent and audacious, at times subtle and delicate, at times action-packed and breathtaking, at times introspective and psychological, even romantic. It's over 45 chapters, 620,000 words of pure, uncompromising epic in the most literal sense of the word. It's a larger-than-life tale of personal growth, the pursuit of one's destiny and virtues in the face of a world that's constantly gnawing and corroding at your very body and soul until nothing remains of your former self. A tale of friendship and strong bonds that are formed through camaraderie and through the mutual need to survive a hostile environment. Personal beliefs and knowledge coming into question at every turn, tragedies striking whenever they're most unexpected, inner demons surfacing and try to take over your sanity, and the sheer strength of one's will to press on, hoping and fighting for a better future. And yes, this story is a mashup between the Fallout video game series and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. We have the well-known setting of a post-apocalyptic wasteland serving as an apologue about the errors of humanity, except it has ponies in it. Also zebras, dragons, manticores, cyborgs, zombies, etc., but mostly ponies. The main difference between legit fiction and fan fiction is subtle and tricky, especially in today's world in which mass media have embraced their more self-aware, openly heterogenic nature in between their constant interaction, cultural exchanges, and meta deconstruction. An original creation is no longer something that can be associated with the literal meaning of the word original. That all known fiction, stories, and related characters and themes are the byproduct of something that already existed since ancient mythologies is something we were already aware of since William Shakespeare's brand of creative yet derivative storytelling. That's the point, really. Creativity does not come from originality. It comes from the contextualization of what's already been made, either being specific narrative tropes, genres, settings, and/or archetypes, and the rearrangement of said elements to suit the intentions and means of the authors and the story they want to tell and how they want to tell it. In light of that, the only real blurry line that separates legit fiction from fan fiction, at least from a semantic standpoint, is the fact that the latter is very much open and blatant about its derivative nature, because it wants to add something about whatever story the author was being a fan of. Fallout Equestria might be very much open about its roots and origins. It might be using specific names and settings that were already pre-established in the source materials, but its sheer brilliance and surprising solid narrative is ultimately the result of the authoress's talent to take those elements that were already invented by someone else and merge them together to create the foundation of a whole new diegesis. A diegesis that feels creative and original, again, thanks to the magic of contextualization. A prolonged war between the Equestrians and the Zebra tribes, followed by a series of very bad decisions moved by good intentions, bring on the apocalypse as mega spells, the standing metaphor for nuclear bombs, rain down the land. The Pegasi flee from the horror by sealing off the skies, they can do that, and isolate themselves as the rest of the world crumbles and die. Survivors are scattered in subterranean stables. They eventually resurface after 200 years, all except the inhabitants of Stable 2. Again, it's the premise of Fallout 3 with ponies at first glance, except the execution is far more interesting and generally well done. The smooth implementation of retro-futuristic weaponry and technology in a high fantasy environment makes for a fascinating construct of science fiction/dark fantasy hybrid that gets increasingly expanded upon, deconstructed, and contextualized as the story progresses without slowing down its seemingly perfect pacing. Chapter after chapter, we learn a bit more about the origins of the Equestrian Wasteland, the causes that brought us here, the key figures primarily involved and the mistakes that were made. And every single element serves a specific purpose in the overarching narrative, providing stakes, mysteries, heart-shattering twists, and more than satisfying payoffs. The best part is the clever way all this necessary information and clues are delivered, through recordings of individual ponies, old posters on decayed walls, notes, and magical memory orbs, which are a very important plot point in their own right, as found and experienced through the perception of the main character herself. The most interesting bit, of course, will be to learn about what became of the main six themselves, the original bearers of the elements of harmony, and the tragic role they all played in this war that divided their friendship, which only led to certain doom. The elements from the past intertwine with the advents of the present, thus building both the foundation and the progression of a bigger and more focused story in which nothing feels wasted or unimportant. Every event provides character development and universe building excellency. Complex emotions are delivered through single lines of dialogue or description. Action scenes feel vivid and impactful, tragic and violent as they need to be, with enough hyper-realistic graphic depiction to make Django Unchained blush. All this works in the first place because of the stylistic choices of the author, having the entire story, minus the introduction and the epilogue, also for clever plot-related reasons, told from the first pony perspective of the leading heroine, whom also happens to be the single best written female protagonist in contemporary literature. And yes, you can quote me on that. Meet Littlepip, a small-sized, late-blooming unicorn with a knack for finding, repairing, and lock-picking things. Important plot point! The prologue and first chapter introduce the basic traits of her character. She is a dweller of the last functional underground stable in Equestria, yet to be opened in the past 200 years. She has an uncaring, drunk-addicted mother, no friends, no purpose, and she's pretty much the designed scapegoat should anything go wrong. A thoroughly established underdog with scary but alluring desires of freedom. A well-known template for a protagonist, but one that works at a fundamental level, no less. Her cutie mark resembles a Pip Buck, which is the stand-in for the Fallout's Pip-Boy. A MacGuffin-like device that can pretty much do anything thanks to a blend of magic and technology that everyone in the stable wear on their foreleg. And yes, before you ask, it's a fundamental plot point. The most important, in fact. She also has a crush on Velvet Remedy, the local singer mare, whose voice is the only thing that brings her solace. So, when Velvet Remedy manages to escape from the stable with the accidental help of Littlepip, no less, our heroine makes the semi-conscious decision to search for her, which is partly an excuse to abandon the oppressive atmosphere of the bunker, especially now that everyone would be blaming her, further alienating her sense of belonging. Once out of the stable, she discovers the agoraphobic vastness of the equestrian wastelands. That's when her journey through hell begins. She has to fight and kill in order to survive. She tries to save defenseless ponies and cling on whatever ounce of sanity and morality the land won't try to pry from her soul. She manages to make new friends and travel with them. She loses herself in wild fits of rage that usually led to massacre. She becomes acquainted with despair and with death, much to her dismay. She learns the consequences of her actions in the worst possible ways. She tries to live up to the overblown reputation that the local DJ Pomfrey had been spreading around through his radio network, which leads to more situations that almost destroy her, both physically and mentally. She's willing to sacrifice herself in place of her newfound friends for fear of losing them, but then she learns to trust them to help and that she would be nothing without them. She desperately searches for her purpose and virtue in a world that systematically kills her hopes and self-consciousness. She grimaces when she realizes she is not the chosen one in the traditional sense, only to eventually understand that her role is far more complicated and mind-blowing than anyone could possibly imagine. She's also sexually repressed and stuck on a one-sided crush for a mare that can't possibly repay her feelings, as much as it pains both of them for different reasons. That changes when she meets the love of her life in the form of Homage, whose mature relationship with will save her life in more ways than one. So, her homosexuality is not just a vehicle for the occasional running gag, but a means for her growth and development, albeit not a defining trait. An epic sci-fi/gritty fantasy tale that stars a well-written lead that's both female and gay?
That's crazy!
And again, she hurts, she bleeds, she suffers, she loathes and self-loathes, she loses herself, she crumbles, then she rises, she overcomes, she values love and friendship, she openly challenges the wasteland, she becomes a hero. Simply put, Littlepip is best pony. Deal with it. She also happens to interact with the best cast of characters this side of Cowboy Bebop. Her first buddy is Deadshot Calamity, a cowboy Pegasus rebel with a pair of guns mounted under his wings and a shoot first, ask questions later attitude, which comes often into play as one of his major flaws.
Shoot me all you want, but if you attack that family, I will end you.
Whoa, Nelly.
I ain't the one attacking that caravan. You are.
Not attacking. You shot me.
Well, of course I shot you. I see a raider heading at a caravan. I'm a-gonna perforate her till she ain't moving no more. It's my policy.
I'm not a raider!
You sure look like a raider.
He abandoned his cloudy home to try and make a difference and save lives where it counts. He is cheerful and good-natured, loyal to the core to his friends, and his own self-imposed policy, while questionable and bound to be shaken, makes him the most morally integer of the group. Then there's Velvet Remedy herself, who joins the team pretty early on in the story when Littlepip catches up with her. She's a kind soul counterbalanced by a general snarky and uptight attitude who wants to help everyone she can and dreams to be a medical pony in the footsteps of Fluttershy, her idol. Needless to say, reality will brutally test her beliefs. Overcoming her doubts for the sake of said beliefs will strengthen her character tenfold. Zenith is a zebra slave in a land that was ravaged by the war against zebras. Let's just say that whatever unspeakable horror she experienced in her lifetime, it almost destroyed her self-consciousness, leaving only the beliefs of her people and the subsequent friendship with Littlepip and company to sustain her will. She's also an action alchemist and a master arts specialist, which makes her interesting by default. Last, but certainly not least, there's Steel Hooves, an immortal ghoul forever trapped inside a magically enhanced armor that works like a small army's arsenal. He spent the last 200 years hunting down bloodthirsty, radioactive alicorns. Oh, I'm sorry, did I forget to mention there are bloodthirsty, radioactive alicorns in this story? And that the author was using the term alicorn even before Hasbro ever did? Well, now you know! There's only so much that can be said without becoming utterly repetitive. This is a great novel, with extremely well done characters, arcs, and subplots to go with. The story of Gold Ditsy-Doo and her stepdaughter Silver Bell alone is worth all your money. There's an underlying critique on capitalism, religion, and the failings of democracy, with all of its silly and ultimately futile ministries. And there's a powerful message about the importance of love and friendship in the face of oblivion, which deeply empowers the means of the original show in a more adult and mature way. Fallout Equestria is not just good for fanfiction standards, it's one of the defining, most important readings of our time, and this has been Madhog, and you've been listening to Fanfiction R&R.
Darkness, integrity, the first casualty. You took my kindness, but not my silence. No, nothing can silence me. And what you try